In a bone-chilling love triangle, 16-year-old Diamond Alvarez met a tragic fate at the hands of her boyfriend, Frank Dalio Jr., who was entangled with another teen. Diamond discovered the additional relationship leading to a fateful encounter at a park on January the 11th, 2022, while walking her dog Peanut. Gunshots shattered the night and her lifeless body was later discovered in a field by her family. Frank Dallion faced initial arrest but secured release on a $250,000 bond. Despite subsequent arrest for bond violations, he was released again. Accused of brutally shooting Alvarez 22 times, he faced murder charges with the same $250,000 bond. Shortly before the verdict, Dallion skipped his trial citing a car crash, which led to forfeiting his bond and landing in custody. Diamond's family tirelessly sought justice for their daughter, a dedicated honor student with aspirations of becoming a cosmetologist. In a recent development, Frank Dalio Jr. was sentenced for January 2022 killing of 16-year-old Diamond Alvarez after accepting a plea deal. He must serve at least half of his sentence before becoming eligible for parole. In a candid conversation with Cesar Espinoza from FIEL Houston, we explored the deeply rooted misogynist traits within society. Reflecting on the tragic event, Espinoza, deeply involved in aiding the affected family, shed light on the disturbing aspects of misogyny prevalent in today's society.
Today in my show, I got Cesar Espinoza with me. He works with FIEL, and he is not only a social activist, but a political scientist as well. And we talk and exchange a lot of issues in between us. But today we are going to talk about Diamond Alvarez's case. Thank you, Cesar, for joining me today in my show. Let's talk about Diamond's case. I know we can consider it just one of the cases, but what exactly happened to that young girl is something we should not just ignore or try to push it under the carpet.
Well, first, before we get started, I wanted to thank you for the amount of times that we have been on here, for you actually diving into a lot of these issues and for extending that outreach with the Latino community. I think it's really important that that we talk about these issues on a greater scale, so that other communities can know that at the end of the day, we face a lot of the same issues, a lot of the same hurdles, and at the end of the day, if we come together, we can as community, we can help solve these problems. So thank you so much for having us once again, and thank you for tackling these issues. In the unfortunate case of Diamond Alvarez was a 16-year-old little girl who was in a toxic relationship with a young man, 17 years old. And he was dating multiple women at the same time.
Yes.
So more than one young lady. At the end of the day, Diamond finds this out and not only confronts her killer, but also tells some of the women that he's been dating about what's going on.
Yeah.
Puts him in the know. And this guy, in the middle of the night, or not in the middle of the night, but when it gets dark, he tells her, "Hey, let's meet at this park because I want to talk to you." She goes and she grabs her dog Peanut, and she tells her family, "I'm going to go walk the dog." And next thing you know, the family hears from far away. They hear 22 gunshots.
Yeah. In 2022, in March, I covered that story. Yes. In my news bulletin, and it was just shocking.
Yes. Because
when the dog came back and the gunshots they heard, it gave me goosebumps. I remember reading about that story.
Yeah, so Peanut comes home, he comes home full of blood.
Yeah.
And the family immediately runs to go look for Diamond, and she had told her sister she was going to be at the park. So they try to go to the park, they try to revive her, and she's dead by the time that they get there.
He shot her 24 times.
He shot her 22 times. So the way police have explained it to us is that he shot her in the face, in the neck, in the chest, And when she was down, he still had the audacity to reload the gun and shoot her about 10 more times. So definitely an intentional crime, definitely a cold-blooded crime, definitely a crime that deserved the maximum sentence. But unfortunately, we only got 45 years.
Yeah. And then in the middle, I was reading about it, and then he constantly keep getting the bond. He paid his $250,000 bond as well, and he was out on it.
Yes. So one of the things we want to make very clear, we want to explain, is that in the state of Texas, by state law, murder is bondable. So you can get a bond for murder.
Yeah.
The only way that they can hold somebody on no bail is if they commit capital murder, meaning that if they commit a felony while they are committing murder. In the case of police officers and in other cases, then they can get charged with capital murder. But if it's just simple murder, and when I say simple, I mean that
this sounds,
in legal
I know,
terms.
this all sounds so surreal.
Yes.
Because, okay, I cannot imagine her pain. I cannot imagine the family, what they went through, because that's what exactly happened in the court the other day. Like, they just lurched at each other.
So in the case of simple murder, unfortunately, because of the way the laws in the state of Texas are written, judges cannot give a no bail for just a straight murder. So what happened in this case is that this young man was able to get out on bond and be out on bond for almost 2 years while the case made its way through the court.
Slowly.
And he violated his bond several times, but unfortunately, the laws that exist in our books here in Texas allowed him to still be able to go out and continue living his life for 2 years, while obviously Diamond was no longer here.
Yeah, like those parents missed their daughter, those siblings missed their sibling. She had dreams, and because she was a woman, she was weaker, and she was treated on the lines of chauvinism, and that is just a simple matter. And he can get out in the meantime, and he can just live his life, probably date more women on the apps, and continue what he was doing, technically.
Yeah, and it was worse because during those 2 years, the family kept getting harassed by all of his friends. There was multiple attempts done to endanger the family's life. And so this 2 years, imagine, let's put ourselves in their shoes. These 2 years, their daughter gets murdered. They go into mourning, and at the same time they're mourning, they're getting threats. There's drive-bys at the house. There's burnouts, things like that. And then once they start trial, things continue to go on because this guy lives 2 blocks away from them. And so, something must be done. We have to figure out a way that we can advocate at the Texas legislature to make sure that we hold murderers accountable and that we no longer let them out on bail. But that's for the state to decide.
Exactly, because if they're out, then what I cannot even begin to imagine what the family went through all that time in 2 years. Because when the DA said, like, oh, they're so lucky that the case has been done in 2 years, every second counts. You're looking over your back.
Every second counts. And last night when I talked to Diamond's mom, we always make sure to follow up with families, stay in touch with them. When I called Diamond's mom, she said something very sad to me. When I told her, how do you feel? She said, how do you expect me to feel? She was like, you took our lives. This is not over. For me, it's never going to be over. For me, Diamond is always going to be missing. This is not over. I feel better that he's in jail now, but when he took her life, he took our lives as well.
Yes.
And that's to me, that still is implanted in my head, knowing that we're never going to understand like you said, we're never going to understand the amount of pain, the amount of suffering that these families endure.
I mean, we are also parents.
Mm-hmm.
You die with your child straight away. I mean, there is no life when you do not have your children with you. It's the life is over. There is no point to live life. And then I cannot even imagine, like, when you have to worry about the fact, like, he lives down 2 blocks down. You can hear his car probably starting. Mm-hmm. He sounds like a very rowdy teenager to me.
Well, as Diamond's mother put it, this guy is a monster.
Yes.
Only a monster can.
I would say it because I am a woman.
Yes, only a monster can lure a woman in the middle of the night, a young lady, a vulnerable child to a park, and not only shoot her the original a dozen times, but then reload a gun and shoot her while she's already dead on the ground. Only a monster can do that. So at the end of the day, we have to figure out a way for the society to stop producing these monsters. We have to figure out a way to parent better so that we can have children that can control their emotions, can control these other sudden urges of rage. And at the end of the day, and now speaking only for the Latino community, can drop any community, but in the specific case of the Latino community, because I'm a Latino, we need to drop this whole chauvinistic machismo attitude
I'm a South Asian.
towards women.
We
sometimes.
face from chauvinism as well,
Yes.
and left, right, and center all the time. This is because women are objectified. Women are always, there's more discussion every time it's gender-based, because I cannot begin to imagine, like, we live in the United States, we live with so many communities together. Okay, my only point is, what about Texas legislature is not doing, I don't know what they're doing about it, because they need to look into it. Like, if people are harassing women, and to be honest, it could be the other way around as well. People in societies should not be able to harass each other, because I cannot even say it's a simple murder. I think it's terrible situation. So what was the role the security, the law enforcement played in this when they were getting harassed?
Well, so yes, a lot of questions in one question, but and I'm glad this is a 16-hour show where we could discuss all of this, but I know it's not. So it's really complex what the state legislature is or not doing. They're not doing anything about this issue. Instead, right now, as we speak, there's Texas representatives and senators in the state discussing the border wall, immigration policy, passing harsher laws against immigrants. But then when we tell them, hey, you need to address this issue of bail or this issue of murders, we don't have time for that. And then we tell them we need to address the issue of gun, because how did this guy get a gun? How is it that people have access to guns? We saw what just happened.
What happened in Maine?
In Maine,
exactly.
And we don't have time for that, and we don't want to touch that. That's a constitutional thing. It's a federal government thing. But yeah, you're working on immigration, which is also a federal government issue.
Thing.
So I think unfortunately, in Austin, the politics game continues to be played. They just want to focus on what's going to make them stay in office or get them points so they can stay in office.
I think it's even at the federal level. It's the same thing.
And at the end of the day, we as community, the people are the ones that have to pay, just like Diamond's family. So we really need to fix this loophole in the law that says that murderers can get bail. We really do need to fix these loopholes in the law that allow children to have readily access to guns.
Yeah.
And we really do need to fix our systems so that young people that are going through crisis, or that they're having these thoughts about doing these really dastardly acts, can get the help that they need before they carry them out. I mean, this could have been preventable, but at the end of the day, there was so much against Diamond. There were so many powers playing against her that she ended up losing her life, and that is definitely a shame. We don't know what she could have accomplished in life.
Oh, yeah. Let me just take a very short break. We are going on a very short break. We'll be right back. We're in conversation with Cesar Espinoza. He is with FIEL, and we have more questions coming up. Stay tuned.
The Made to Move sales event at Big Star Cadillac is all about the savings. Enjoy 1.9% APR financing on all 2023 and 2024 Cadillac CT4 and CT5 sedans, and all 2023 and 2024 XT4, XT5, and XT6 crossovers. Lower your payment with 1.9% APR limited term financing at Houston's Cadillac to your door dealer, Gulf Freeway, just 2 minutes south of the Beltway.
Shop smarter when you shop at Big Star. Shop BigStarCadillac.com.
Hey! Okay. Mm-hmm.
If you love me enough to tolerate my perfect little pets and all their glorious dander, then of course you'll visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure I'm in the right car seat. Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look.
Welcome back. We got Cesar Espinoza with us from FIEL in our studio, and we are talking about the murder case of Diamond Alvarez, a teenager girl who had all the dreams in her eyes, but she lost her life. Let's talk about the fact, like when Frank Delio, her murderer, another teenager, called her up and set up a time to meet with the girl. So he had ankle monitor on. So why there was no notification to the county or the law enforcement officers like this guy is going within? Because when you have a murder case or a situation going on, then you have then you probably have restraining orders as well. So how come authorities were never notified?
Well, so what happens? The reality is, in particular with Harris County monitoring systems, is the majority of them don't have access to GPS or live monitoring. Wow. They do have access to like cell towers will pinpoint where the person was, but it's not immediate. It is only when they go to the probation officer and they get plugged into a machine that they are able to download the information of where that person was. So unfortunately, there is technology that exists, but there's not the funding to buy that technology or to fund a center that will live monitor ankle monitors here in the county, in Harris County. And there's so many people out on bond that it would be very expensive to get that program going. So an ankle monitor is more of a deterrent factor for the person who's out on bond to say, if you violate your parole, when we see you, if we see that you have violated your conditions, then we can revoke bond, but it's not until after the fact. So unfortunately, we have a lot of people who cut off the monitor.
Yes, they do.
Who flee, who disappear, and then some of these cases are never solved, and they
become cold cases.
And they become cold cases.
So, okay, coming back towards the Diamond's case. So when he went to see her, probably he was not on a parole or something.
He was not on a parole or anything like that. It was after he murdered her. He got an ankle monitor placed,
and then he did cut it off, or
he violated the parole a couple of times by stepping out of the zone and things like that.
So what if he ran away to other country or something?
We would have been only notified because he wouldn't have come into his parole appointments. Other than that, there really was no way to monitor where he was, even the day of the trial. So the day of the trial, when the trial was supposed to get started, he disappeared.
Yes, he disappeared. He
said he had a car accident. And he was wearing an ankle monitor, and there was no way at that moment, that exact moment, to pinpoint his GPS location because there's no live monitoring on these ankle monitors. So we were very worried that he had escaped already and we were never going to get the justice for the family.
And what if he shows up a few years later and shoots the rest of the people? Because if he was so revengeful that because Diamond was talking and told other women he was dating at the same time, 3 timings her or 4 timings or whatever, and then he shot her 24 times, Cesar. So that shows the rage inside this young man, like he had that revengeful nature. So you think if he would have disappeared, he would not show up again and not take the revenge on Diamond's brothers, any other sister, or maybe mom or parents or anybody for that matter.
I mean,
so we are basically victims and their families are sitting ducks.
At this time, they are. At this time, even right now, as we're conducting this interview, we still have police escorts riding around their house, making sure that they're okay. Because at this time, we're still not confident that this is all over. We're hoping that it is. And the message to everybody out there, both Diamond's family, but specifically the murderer's family, is this has to be over now. we cannot have another tragedy born out of this one already.
Yeah.
And we just ask everybody to move on from this, to leave this family alone, to give them their final closure that they deserve, and that they move on accepting that their relative, Frank De Leon, committed this murder, and he is now paying for what he did. So we don't need another tragedy.
So there was an issue at the court that day, and so the family doesn't feel sorry for her family, what exactly happened to them, or they're taking the side of their son.
So I was just telling the story this morning that when Miss Ana was saying, was giving a victim impact statement, which is, explaining how her life had changed, how her life had been turned upside down after Frank did this to Diamond. Frank was just sitting there smiling at her. He was just laughing at her. And at the end of the day, Miss Ana got really upset, and she tried to go confront him. And then that just started mayhem in the court, where there was a couple of people that got detained. They got tasered and things like that, because at the end of the day, this guy was showing no remorse for the life he had taken, and he was showing no accountability. So, I don't excuse the behavior, but I also put myself in these families' shoes, knowing that the pain, the suffering, all the emotional toll that is taken on him is something that we will never be able to put ourselves in our shoes if we have not been in that situation. So, of course, we ask everybody to be calm. Everybody at court should follow decorum. But at the end of the day, sometimes people's emotions get the best of them. And our job is just to make sure that everybody's calm and walks away with this as clean as possible. And that's what we're hoping to do, or continue to do, with the Alvarez family.
That is terrible. How did FIEL got involved into this? Because I know FIEL has worked extensively with the immigrant issue and the migrant and the illegal migrants and all that. How did you all got involved?
So a few years ago, we changed our mission not only to help out immigrants, but to help out the Latino community in general, to do more civil rights cases. So one of the cases we handled at first was the case of John Hernandez. He was a young man outside of a Denny's who got choked to death as well, died a very brutal death. And so that was the first case we actually worked on the judicial side, or the criminal side. And then after that, more people unfortunately started reaching out to us. And I say that unfortunately because a lot of people just don't know the way the judicial system works when they are facing tragedy.
It's so confusing.
Now they're hearing, do I hire an attorney? Do I not? Who's going to represent me?
And people don't have money to hire
People
those
don't have money. So we step in and we help people navigate these very difficult spaces and help them get the justice at the end of the day that they deserve. But it's not pure justice. I mean, at the end of the day, this should have never happened. Diamond should still be with us.
Yes.
But at the end, and this guy should have been put away for more than 45 years. But given the circumstances, given all the variables, these sentences are better than them just walking away. So we help families. We never look for families. We always have families. We wait till families reach out to us to ask for help. And this family did just that. And we started helping them, advising them on what to do, how to take control of their own narrative, and at the end of the day, fight for justice.
As a media platform, we know that there is an uptick in the violence, in the domestic violence cases after COVID-19. As your organization, do you guys feel like this has happened exactly, and there is an uptick in the violence, and specifically domestic violence related cases?
Yes, we have. And we've seen that there's an uptick definitely in domestic violence cases, which is why we're partnered up with more resources, more centers that help with specifically women, but also men in domestic violence issues, and trying to help them figure out these spaces as well. One of the things that's important for people to know is that if they are undocumented, there's special provisions of the Violence Against Women Act, which is both for men and women.
Yes, that's a very important point, because a lot of people feel like they're illegal, so they just have to be quiet. They cannot go to the doctors. They cannot get treatment done. They cannot have any legal help, and they just have to stay quiet and get, they're being targeted then. They're discriminated against.
Yes. And so with VAWA, we're able to help them through that process, navigate that process, get their certifications, and get them on the right path.
So tell me, Cesar, if somebody is an illegal migrant or there is an issue with their paperwork, so if some violent case has happened to them, so what help they can ask for?
Well, they can always reach out to us for help at FIEL Houston, www.fielhouston.org, or call our number in our office to get more help, to find out resources, and then to see if they may be able to qualify for either U visa if they're a victim of a violent crime, or for VAWA if they're a victim of domestic violence.
So they can get some visas on that, so they can be legalized after that, probably. Because there are a lot of cases people create stories and then they come forward because they want to get their paperwork done. So this
has to be a credible thing. There has to be a certification by law enforcement saying, yes, this did happen, and yes, this was the outcome of it. Because they also must be cooperative with police. Sometimes people say, I want to get a U visa, or I want to get VAWA. And then we're like, well, what happened? Did you file charges? Did you? Oh, no, in fact, we're living together again. And we're like, no, like in order for this to work, you have to follow through with your part and make sure that these violent people face justice at the end of the day.
Let's just take one more last angle on this situation. How can we make how can we make better families? We can be better families. And how can we not have this kind of attitude? Because if somebody is so violent within your family, so how other family members can behave or go around it?
So lately I've been talking a lot about a saying that a Mexican president said, Benito Juarez said, El respeto al derecho ajeno es la paz. The respect for other people's rights is peace. So this goes between men and women too. Like, if we respect each other, if we teach our children to respect women, to respect men, to respect each other's spaces, each other's beliefs, each other's customs, each other's language, etc., then we would get to a point where we are better as a society. I myself have a 5-year-old, and in our house, we teach him to be respectful to everybody, to treat everybody as a human being, and to not feel any more powerful because he's just a man, just because he's a gender. We teach him, and it's difficult at times as a young parent.
I know I'm having this asking you this question because within our communities, yours and mine, this is a problem.
It is definitely a problem, but it is a problem that we must face head on and very humbly say there's no gender that's superior to the other. And at the end of the day, just like in the community, if we all work together, we can make so much better things happen. But it takes work, and it's going to take real conversations, real changing of our minds and customs to show younger generations that a positive change is possible where we can respect each other.
Thank you so much, Cesar, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having us and for continuing to talk about these very important issues.
Before finishing up the show, let me just conclude it right here. We, as families, as individuals, and as societies, we need to have this conversation with our own family members. We need to give respect and give space to each other. We need to tell them that there is no man or a woman or a gender-based issues. We need to decide and say it's a human being. Like Cesar said, peace is more important in any kind of circumstances, and it's the best solution for any kind of society. Thank you for watching Truth Be Told with me, Sofia Jamal. Have a great weekend.